outstanding assistant coach with the Kings, Jay Triano. We've been talking a lot of football today with the NFL free agency starting. Did you know that he was drafted by the Calgary Stampeders?
I did not.
Of the Canadian
Good
Football
info
League.
right there, brother.
Also drafted by the Los Angeles Lakers.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
That's a different situation.
Jay Triano. Nice stuff to join us. Coach, did you? How close did you come to becoming a Canadian pro football player?
Not that close. No, I was. It's funny because the way the Canadian Football League is set up, the draft happens in June or pardon me, like March, but the season starts in June, and it was the same time I got drafted. It was around the same time that I got drafted by the Lakers. So I had to make a decision, and I had played basketball my whole life, so I was going to try out for the Lakers instead. So I passed on football.
Gotcha. We appreciate your time today. I know it's a very busy time for you. Coach Brown pointed out yesterday that the offense had been ranked third in the league since the All-Star break. What was the most significant thing the Rockets did to knock the offense out of whack in that third quarter yesterday?
I just think their physicality overall. They were into us. They stopped us from getting paint touches. We need to get into the paint, not just to score, but to spray the ball and shoot threes. Our transition numbers were down. We just did not do it. They're a good team. They're a very good defensive team and physical. And we struggle with a little bit of that physicality. They just stopped us from getting in the lane and moving. And those are the things that we want to do. We want to be elusive with our offense.
Coach, something that Coach Brown has said, and you just said a couple of times right there, using the word physicality. Just for the fans and the listeners out there, can you explain the physicality that you guys, the coaching staff, is looking towards from this team? Does that mean moving guys off the spot? Does that mean, common sense like bumping and being rough? Like, what are you guys asking for when you say physicality?
Yeah, no, I think you hit it right there. Like, anytime we try to cut, offensively, and we get bumped, it disrupts our timing. It disrupts our ability. I always like the analogy, you touch your man and you touch the ball. So when a guy gets a catch, you try to touch your man, just make him feel uncomfortable. And a lot of guys will turn their body halfway when you do that. And then if you swipe at the ball, they'll move the ball, which takes them away from being able to make an on-time and on-target pass. So, Fred VanVleet is a veteran guy who's smaller in stature, but every time you tried to run by him, he had two hands on you. He gave you a little bump, a little shove, and that disrupts your timing offensively. So, we pride ourselves at the offensive end of being, as I mentioned before, elusive. Try to move, don't let them, if you're running backwards in transition, you can't be physical against us. If we're making hard cuts through the lane, you can't be physical with us. Otherwise, you get caught grabbing us. But, Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet are probably two of the better physical defenders in the NBA, and they bumped us and they moved us off our course.
Catching up with Jay Triano here with the Drive Guys. Yesterday, the Kings, as they've had in some recent games, you guys had some success going to the zone. Obviously, sometimes it's just, a matter of change of pace. But are there some things about your personnel that actually make your team well suited to mix in a little bit of zone?
Well, I think the main reason for the zone is, to try to disrupt the other team's flow offensively. Like, we feel the same way if a team plays zone against us. We come down the court, they're in zone. Okay, now we have to think of another set of plays that we're going to run. Maybe it takes away from our speed of our cuts, or whether we can get into the paint as freely as we could in a man-to-man. So I think that's the same reason that we're doing it at the defensive end. It's just to see if we can disrupt the flow of the game a little bit, make them take a little bit more time, see if we can cause them to take a quick shot. I think Houston, like, as I mentioned, they've got veteran players, a couple of veteran, point guard and Fred, who he knows how to play, and he took the zone, and I think it bothered them a little bit at first, but then they figured it out and got in, and that's why I don't think you can have a steady dose of it. You got to keep mixing things up, and I think that's how you keep teams off balance.
Joined by assistant coach Jay Triano of the Sacramento Kings. Coach, in a perfect world, I've heard you, I've heard Coach Doug Christie, I've heard Jordy Fernandez, everybody, it seems like, have talked about how many shots Keegan Murray gets up a game. In a perfect world, what are you guys looking for from Keegan Murray as far as shot-wise?
Well, I don't know if there's like an exact number, but, we want him to be a scorer, and he is a scorer. I think he's expanded his game to the point where he can put it on the deck a little bit, get into the mid-range, got a little bit of a float, a little bit of a fadeaway. But we remind him all the time. He's gotten to where he is with the Kings by shooting a three. We want to take more threes than we have in the last little bit. There's no doubt about that. We want to shrink the defense and be able to shoot it. And Keegan's one of our better shooters. So I know he's struggling a little bit right now from the field, but at the same time, the way you break out of something like that is by continuing to shoot, continue to take good shots. When we drive and kick, we're going to look for you, and you've got to be able to knock it down when we do that.
Jay, we were going to ask you about that. The Kings, as you know, 4th in the league in three-point attempts per game. You guys are 39. Over the last 11 games, that number's coming down. You're only taking about 33 a game. We were going to ask, is that by design or just a byproduct of matchups or circumstance? Sounds like you definitely want to be taking more threes.
We certainly do. I think in the last couple of games, when we do our scouting reports and we break down teams that we're going to play, there's some teams, San Antonio, for example, and Houston are two of the better teams at taking away the three-point shot. You come off of a pick and roll with San Antonio, they're going to guard it with two guys, and they're going to push out and almost face guard the three-point shooter. So it's tough to get 43s, but our goal is 40. We'd love to shoot 43s a game. You're right, that number is down, and I think a little bit of that has to do with our confidence in shooting it too. I don't think, Kevin hasn't been on as much as he was earlier in the year. Keegan hasn't had the same confidence. So, and last night, we've really got some good minutes from our bench. And last night, maybe we can't ask our bench to do it every single night. So we struggled there. But I think it's a matter of just continuing to shoot, continuing to try to build their confidence, and we've got to let it fly when we get a chance.
Coach, it is an absolute dogfight in the Western Conference right now. And every single day we see the loss column and the win column moving up and down and side to side. At what point in time as an NBA team do you guys start to look around you? If not, if it has already happened, please let us know. But when do you start to look around for positioning?
Well, I think I can't speak for everybody, but All-Star break is when I usually make my chart and look at who's left, who do we have to play, how many home games, and I match that up with other teams around the league and try to follow the standings and note whether I should pay particular attention to some team or that we may face. But, we talk to the players about it. There have been meetings where we've put up the standings and said, this is where we are. This is why this is a big game. We need to climb up. We got a little bit of help over the weekend. We need to take advantage of it. So I think we're always reminding them because, we think it's important to have the short-term goals of the games, but it's also important to have the weekly and the long-term goals of the season, where we want to be. And all these games matter right now. They matter for, whether we could be in play-in or whether we could be, in actually right into the playoffs. So, I think it's something that everybody is aware of. So why not talk about it? And we do often.
Kings assistant Jay Triano with us. And Coach, you being a basketball lifer, what has impressed you the most about the way Keon Ellis has carved out a role for himself with the Kings this season?
I think, his defensive, length and the way that he just finds a way to get his hand on the basketball. And, we talked a little bit before about the physicality. He's not the most physical guy in the NBA, but he's going to touch the ball. He's not going to let you make a clean pass on time and on target. He's going to have his hand in the pot. He's going to get a deflection, and if that leads to a turnover, then that's great for us. And that leads into transition, which we love to do. We love to run. So I just think, his ability at the defensive end, and then, not hesitating at the offensive end. He's got a great shot. It's a little bit of a side wind on it, like it's got a little bit of a side spin, but he makes it at a very high rate, and we want him to shoot it when we get into the paint and move it, and he's not hesitant at all.
Coach Triano, you've been here for a couple of years now, almost a couple of years. And as a Sacramento Kings fan, man, sometime I walk into the Golden One Center and just live in the moment. Have you had the opportunity to kind of do that over the last couple of years? It seems like it's been a whirlwind since you guys have come in and, taken the city by storm. But do you ever just sit down and take an opportunity? And I know you're a coach. I know you have plenty of things to do. Yeah. And as you said, your scouting reports and everything else. But do you ever just sit down and soak it in?
Oh, absolutely. I think, I think I've said on this program before, as a visiting coach coming in here, I was always impressed because the teams were not always really good, but the fan support was crazy. And last year it took it to a new level with the success that we had. And I'm just like, I'm so appreciative of the way that this team is accepted by the fans here and their expectations. I mean, our expectations are the same as well. Did you know that our record last year at this time, we had one more win. That's it.
Wow.
Yep.
But everybody's expectations have changed, including ours as coaches. So we don't feel like, I think last year at this point, we were all like, this is the best thing ever. This year, we're feeling like the roof is caving in, and we're one game away from where we were. And I think that speaks to the fans, but it also speaks to who we are, because we're competitive, and we want to be better than we were last year, even though the Western Conference and a handful of teams have all gotten better.
Coach Triano, we'll let you go on this one. When are you going to write your new book, How to Get a Bad Shooting Free Throw Team to Start Making Their Free Throws? Because I don't know what you guys have done, but it's brilliant.
Yeah. You know what? We scratch our heads all the time about that. We wonder whether we should not practice them, because we practice them more than any team I've been associated with. But we're just not making them this year, and we think that'll turn. Our analytics guys keep telling us that everything will find a way to come back to the norm. So we just got to keep hoping that happens sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and it looks like last few games it is happening. So great job,
yeah.
Coach. Thank you very much for your time. Best of luck the rest of the way. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you very much.
Jay Triano, drafted by the Lakers, drafted by the Calgary Stampeders of the Canadian Football League way back when. One thing I'll say, Jay, when he says, we have the same record, it speaks to expectations. It speaks to what we expect from our team and the state of the West, but it also speaks to the fact that, as I think he alluded to this, everyone's getting better in the West. Everyone else getting better. And if you're kind of where you were, that's why you're looking up at so many teams, right?
Yes. What was, as Coach was saying those things, Whitey, I'm thinking in my mind, doesn't this sound familiar? Doesn't this sound like what we've been saying so many times here on this show, on this station? And it's refreshing. I will say this. It is refreshing to see a coach, and shouts out to Coach Triano for saying that, because he could have came out with some coach speak. He could have came out with certain things. I thought Coach Triano was very upfront and open and honest in a couple of those questions, where he's like, yeah, you better believe we look around who's around us. You better believe we want to see, who's right in front of us and who's behind us and who we got to play. And with that being said, Whitey, expectations. I mean, they understand it inside the G1C. They understand expectations have changed. And he even said expectations for the coaching staff has changed, man. I thought that was very refreshing to hear.
Yeah, he also spoke of some of the offensive struggles for the Kings yesterday, and we'll look at how they're struggling now with the spray game next. Drive Guys on Sactown Sports.